maybe separatism, if Alberta was to separate, that is, it would be a win-win situation. Alberta can go off and do their own thing, develop their pipelines, and Canada overnight would meet all its greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. So what do you think about that?
I think it's not fully curing the problem of the land itself being affected. We do need to think about our Earth, especially when we're looking at videos saying that we have 11 years before we have, like by 2030, before we have irreversible damage.
Well, the campaigning and the debating and the mudslinging and the ballot counting, it's all over. And the day after, what do we have, folks? We have 4 more years of the Justin Trudeau Liberals and presumably 4 more years of no action in terms of pipeline construction. And for Alberta's already decimated economy, this is indeed dire news. There is now renewed talks of Alberta separating from the Dominion of Canada. And we thought, how do Torontonians here in Ontario at Yonge Dundas Square feel about that prospect? Let's see what they have to say. Any opinions?
Honestly, NDP should have won.
Oh, is that right? Why do you say that, man?
Jagmeet Singh, bro. Like, what do you mean?
He was gonna stop the pipeline.
Yeah.
That's all we want.
I heard NDP was doing good for the people, you know?
Okay, then.
I heard it was an NDP thing right now, but to be honest,
Actually, it was the Liberals got a minority government last night. Sorry.
it's the Liberals that got the government, but I was voting for the NDPs.
Like, even though I felt like NDP, like Jagmeet was like the best choice, especially for young people in Canada, I felt.
Why do you say that, by the way?
I was just really happy with his concern for the environment, concern with our school, like our tuition, and like the well-being of Canadians.
I voted green.
Do you have any thoughts? Your friend was saying Jagmeet Singh number one.
Yeah. Number one, bro. Yo, he's coming back 2023 to become the prime minister.
Yeah, you already know.
Right? You think that's likely?
Yes, sir.
As you know, no Liberals got elected in Alberta. They're very upset about a new Liberal government coming in under Trudeau. They feel that pipelines will be halted for another 4 years, which is really hurting their economy, and they want to separate. So some people are saying, well, maybe this is a win-win. Let Alberta leave and do their own thing. And Canada could reduce its greenhouse gas emission targets overnight if there's no Alberta. What do you think about that?
I feel like that doesn't really make sense. But I think that's kind of random for us to lose the whole province to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions for the whole country.
Reducing our carbon footprint is something 21st century, but you have to think about the country as a whole. Do not separate. I don't think separation would be good.
And where would Quebec be in this conversation? Because you have to look, if Alberta would leave, you have to see Quebec wanting to separate too, and they see that's possible. And so you could see the dismantlement of Canada if Alberta were to leave. So it's not a good idea for Alberta to leave.
With we as consumers, we have to take into consideration of Alberta's hard work and bringing that home product close to home, I hope. Because if they're not selling it close to home, I would question, especially at a cheaper price, I would question their resolve as far as the Confederation goes.
I mean, like, that's good for them. I understand that the whole Liberal thing, they're not happy with it, and I can understand why they want to leave. But I feel like even with Alberta here, we're more together as a country, so...
I don't know if I can agree with that. There's a lot at stake if we lose Alberta economically, and also, geographically, they make up such a big part of our nation. We depend on them for a lot, and I think that they depend on us more than they think.
Their regional issues, especially around energy, are being heard by the federal government. So I can, if I was Albertan, I would probably feel that way. Of course, I'm not. I'm here in Toronto.
There's a huge gun culture in Alberta. They're always against gun control legislation. There'd be no more worries of a Stephen Harper or a Stockwell Day coming out of Alberta. Wouldn't these be good benefits for Canada?
Yeah, I guess.
Is it perhaps a good idea for Alberta to separate, sir?
Well, do I think it's a good idea for Alberta to separate? Well, not really, because that's a main oil link to us, right? So if they separate from us, what are we gonna do?
I'm leaning towards. I can't say for sure. It could be a good thing. It might be bad, like for the province to be separate from the country when they're so kind of landlocked, But as far as environment, yeah, I think it'd be a good thing.
Maybe separatism, if Alberta was to separate, that is, it would be a win-win situation. Alberta can go off and do their own thing, develop their pipelines, and Canada overnight would meet all its greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. So what do you think about that?
I think it's not fully curing the problem of the land itself being affected. We do need to think about our Earth, especially when we're looking at videos saying that we have 11 years before we have, like by 2030, before we have irreversible damage.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Alberta still. I agree with Alberta. Even though I said it's a big question, I have to overthink it again, but I have to still agree with Alberta because they're all this about gas and stuff over there, right? And the pipelines and the oil and stuff like that, right? So
that's right.
They're kind of
Trudeau's committed to, being a climate crusader, so we'd have a big win that way, wouldn't we?
Yeah, we would have a big win that way.
What if we allow Quebec and Alberta to leave? We get rid of maybe two headaches at the same time.
Getting rid of two headaches is good, but if Alberta doesn't leave, still, one's better than two. At least something is better than nothing, you know what I mean? So.
Wouldn't it be in Trudeau's best interest to let Alberta go, because that's 34 seats off the total, meaning that you're that much closer to a majority government if you have a province that is historically not going to vote Liberal?
In his best interest, I think it's in his best interest to keep the country together. Whether or not they're voting for him, as a good prime minister, I would assume he still wants Canadian people to remain Canadian, I would assume he still wants, even if they're not voting for him personally, as prime minister, his view should be wider than that. It shouldn't just be, hey, these people are voting for me. It should be, hey, what's best for Canada.
But Albertans feel so alienated by this prime minister, right?
They do, but this is what it is.
If they separate, it's not going to be. There's going to be a problem after.
Oh, okay. What do you think the problem would be, sir?
What do I think the problem would be? It would probably be over oil prices and the prices, price ranges going up for oil and natural gases and stuff like that, right?
Oh, I see. The rest of us would have to pay more for gas.
We have to go over there to get it when we already have it over here, right? Yeah.
As a country, so it wouldn't be good for any part of Canada to separate, in my opinion.
But on the other hand, I suspect that the fight to keep them here will be large because, like I said, the transfer payments that provinces like Quebec and provinces in the Maritimes get from Alberta are pretty sizable. So,
but a lot of people in Alberta would say this is exactly why we want to leave.
That is exactly why they want to leave.
Do we have the moral authority to force them to remain in Canada?
Maybe not force, but perhaps convince or, try to get them to lean towards staying. And
that would probably mean allowing them to build more pipelines. Would you do that?
I would say that what we've got going on is pretty good for now, and I don't think another pipeline would. I think that would cause a lot of social unrest. To be honest, at the end, overall.
To be honest, I don't know, man, if it would be a good idea, but it's probably better to separate. Sometimes it's better, to just do your own thing,
Can we find a way to be able to do both, like a safe way for this pipeline to be implemented, so we're giving jobs to people, or we're investing ourselves in renewable energy and providing jobs in a way that can help people, especially people in Alberta, where they're not close to the economy of Toronto, right? They don't have direct access to our city here, so they need something to sustain themselves. But what are we doing to the earth too? We need to someone like Trudeau, I think, should be stepping up and finding a good middle.
Well, folks, it's another Trudeau Liberal mandate. But do you expect the media party and the CBC to hold the Justin Trudeau Liberals accountable, especially now that they're on the payroll? That's why come to Rebel News for the other side of the story. We'll continue to ask this regime the tough questions that need to be asked.